Masang, good afternoon to you once again. The other big developing story today has been the very slight drop in the unemployment rate. It's being cautiously welcomed. What's coming up in reaction?
That's correct, Stephen. Caution has been exercised in the mixed reaction that we've been getting to the unemployment rate dropping to 34.5%. Of course, that's because 7.9 million people are without jobs, as explained by the Statistician General earlier today, saying that a large number of the jobless remains the youth. And we are joined now by Tshifhiwa Mphaphuli, talking to us as the South African Youth Council member. Thank you so much for your time, Tshifhiwa. Youth in unemployment in South Africa remaining a huge problem. A large number of almost 8 million people without jobs. Still, black South African youth. What's your response in this regard?
Currently, the youth unemployment rate is sitting at over 70%. This means that, let's just say, in a class of 10 youth people, 7 out of the 10 is unemployed. Youth unemployment is a big crisis for our country because also it results to social instability. Already we have a blinking economy and our democracy is struggling as it is. So this is a problem for the country and the country's economy. That is why we, as the South African Youth Economy Council, believe that in order to mitigate youth unemployment, all sectors, the public sector, the private sector, and also civil society need to join hands together so that we can fight this problem.
You mentioned the term bleak in your response, and what alludes to that in this particular print of figures is the number of graduates who remain jobless. How big of a crisis is that seen as, because it is continuing to add into the narrative of the jobless numbers in South Africa unabated?
So we can say that there's a fine link between having a post-qualification and employability. That is why we as a council believe that in order for us or the government to mitigate this, the government needs to invest more in higher education. If we invest more in higher education, we believe that more people or youth will be employable. Right now, as a council, we have to agree that the government needs to start addressing higher education as a social investment and not a cost or reliability.
Interesting on the latter there, because I did want to ask you about that barrier to entry from as early as higher education into economic participation, because we've had movements such as Asina Mali as well as Fees Must Fall, but the situation has not changed, and it further feeds into the data that we continue to get from Stats SA, painting that bleak picture of the jobless rate in South Africa.
That is true, that is true. That is why we feel that if we could work together, like I said in the beginning of our conversation, work together through the public sector, the private sector, and also civil society, I think youth stand a better chance in getting jobs in this country.
One question that I think I want to throw to you really in relation to the news that came in, of course, the petrol price being top on the agenda as well today. The issues around the youth finding jobs has been around the fact that there is no excess cash to put aside to actively seek for a job. To what extent do you see that as even further of a barrier? Because if you cannot get on a digital platform to apply for jobs or even apply for higher education, that puts you already in a back foot.
True, true. We as a council believe that there are certain things the government could do to address that situation. So we have a clear plan on ways we could raise more finances, as it is said that we cannot afford certain levels of education. For example, we believe that if we industrialize our economy, with the purpose of import substitution, this would give us more access to funding for our young people. By import substitution, we're saying that it is the whole idea of blocking imported manufactured goods that will give a rise to the demand of all the goods that are produced locally. So that would help us and help our economy. And secondary to that, we could also talk to the beneficiation of our mineral resources. We are all aware that mining is the biggest contributor to our economy. Now imagine South Africa where we beneficiate all our resources. So beneficiation is simply the idea that we transform a mineral resource or a mineral into a high-end product that could only be consumed locally and only exported. That means we'll have more access to capital.
Interesting solutions. We'll have to wait to find out how South Africa deals and tackles the latest data that has been revealed in terms of unemployment in South Africa. Thank you so much for your time. That was Tshifhiwa Mphaphuli from the South Africa Youth Economic Council.